The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. Hey Mateo. I hope you had a good break, because, as I understand it, you guys had Monday off as well. Um, but I hope you're ready to get right back into it because we're going to continue with Fusion 360. And so we're going to have a short little diversion at the beginning. Um, Look at some of the cool things that the Boston Dynamics robots can do, and then we will go ahead and jump right back into it and get more of that phone case designed. Um, I know it's been over a week at this point, so if if we need to back up a little bit and do some review and stuff like that, that's totally okay. I had to do it with my middle school class as well, so absolutely 100% understandable, especially considering Fusion 360 is such a fiddly thing anyway. That sometimes it's a necessary thing once you have a better understanding of the process, so that you can basically set up subsequent steps to succeed sibilants. Um, because sometimes with Fusion 360, one step in the process won't work, and it's because you did something funky 4 steps back, and you can fix it. But if you don't know what you did wrong, sometimes it's easier just to nuke the whole thing and start over. And I'm sure the the number of cases where you don't know what went wrong and you have to nuke it and start over diminish significantly as you get better and more comfortable with it. But you know, as as beginners to it, it's not unheard of. And as um, somebody who's really just kind of saying things to my screen, and then you guys see that happening in real time, I have a very hard time being able to tell, like how you guys did the stuff that we talk about in class. So for that reason, generally, I recommend just starting over from square one. So we'll watch the video. We'll see how everything, how everybody feels about where we can continue and stuff like that. And if need be, we'll backtrack and we'll just make as much progress as we can today. All right. So like I said, the first thing is going to be this video on Boston Dynamics robots. I think it's pretty neat. So I'm going to go ahead and click the play button here just so I can bring up the YouTube video. And then I'm going to link the YouTube video to you guys because you will be able to see it in a much better frame rate than is provided by watching it through a screen sharing session over the internet. Um, yeah. All right. So let me just go ahead and get this played. It's very short too. So I feel like that's pretty remarkable. Um, for one reason in particular, and that is that that's not remote controlled. Those robots were programmed to do that. That's what they know to do in order to get around that specific situation. So with that in mind, I'm going to shamelessly replay it. Okay, so that was like the second time was because I thought it was cool. But there are a lot of little things that are really remarkable about it, like the fact that the robot changes its center of gravity so it doesn't fall over and it has a better angle to open the door. The way it holds the door open with its legs so that it can swing the arm around in order to open it up further, and holds the door for its friend before going through itself. And the other one looks over to its friend in order to ask for its help to get the door open. Like all of these things are pretty remarkable and vaguely, animal-like behaviors. Well, I mean, they're very much so. There's, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Uncanny Valley, um, and I think that they look enough like robots that doesn't really hit it for me. But the Uncanny Valley is a concept where an artificial creature looks very much like a real creature, but not enough to really pass for it. So its movements and look and things like that become very unsettling to humans, and well, probably animals too, because they're close but not quite close enough to really pass as a living being. How much does it cost to own? Probably a lot. I don't think they're really for sale either because these are all purely experimental things from Boston Dynamics. I think um, as they get more comfortable with the software and these different situations and things like that, they'll start incorporating it into maybe a robot or something like that that is for public or military use. But as it stands right now, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think that one of these exists on the market. But um, several millions of dollars, I will say, because it probably cost several millions of dollars to develop this technology. So as it stands right now, to be the proud owner of a Boston Dynamics robot, since it cost you several million dollars to do the R&D necessary in order to make it, I would say to you it costs about several million dollars or several tens of millions of dollars. Hard to say. Anyway, R&D can really be where the sweet money is. Um, if you're cool with writing requests for money, 50% of the time at least. So, uh, as far as the phone cases are concerned, how far did you guys get? Because the slide was placed right around the point where you sketch the rectangle for the case, but according to my last class, that was not actually where they stopped, so I don't want to assume anything. Have not started. Okay. What else are we? Has anybody here started on it? The shape of the case? Oh, so like you were at maybe this point? Oh, whoops, this point or that point? That okay. Cool. All right. Well, we'll back up a little bit for the sake of review and just so everybody's on the same page. So we've got our phone case. Phone case. I'm gonna go ahead and delete the case that I made for the last class. Deleted. Stop sketch. Come on. Work with me here. Yeah, I want to delete it. Jeez. All right, so we got our phone case here. Conveniently, it's oriented as if you laid an iPhone flat on a table. So if you look at the top, you're going to be looking at the front of the phone. If you look at the bottom, you're going to be looking at the back of the phone. So now we know how the phone's oriented. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new component. And this new component is created very simply. You can just right-click on the component tree and select new component. And your component is going to get some generic name like component 5 or 6 or 7 or 4 or 3 or 8 or 12 or whatever. But it's going to be some component. It's going to be some number after the word component. So, cool. All right. So far, so good, right? Now what? Well, now we need to get started on a sketch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it around so I'm looking at the bottom of the phone again. And I'm going to give it a little bit of an angle so I can easily see the bottom of the phone. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the Create Sketch button up here and select this back face of the phone. So as you can see, it's a little bit lighter color. Maybe it's probably kind of difficult to see, but I'm definitely selecting the back face as opposed to this plane right here. I'm going to click it, and it's going to reorient itself. So now we're just staring at the back of the phone. And I'm going to drag select to get the whole back, as well as I'm going to hold down Shift and select these sides here. Oops. All right. Unfortunately, holding down Shift and using the mouse, clicking in the middle mouse button rotates instead of panning like it does normally. But what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the very edge of the phone all the way around. This is going to be useful in a moment. But you want to make sure that the phone's edge is selected all the way around, so it's a nice light blue color. If it's not there, then you know it's not selected. But if it's that nice sort of thick light blue line, then you know that it's been selected. So I'm going to rotate it back around, and I'm going to turn these all into construction lines. Then I'm going to select this. I'm going to select one edge on each side of the phone. So on this side, I'm going to hold down Shift. So I'm going to click on that one. Then I'm going to click on one on the bottom, then on one on the side, and then on one on the top. So now we've got 4 lines that are on the very, very edge of the phone. These are going to be the very sort of outer dimensions of the phone. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up to Sketch and then Project/Include and Project. And what this is going to do is this is going to project the lines upwards onto our sketch. Hit OK. Sometimes it doesn't always cooperate, so sometimes you may want to reproject some of these lines. Yeah, it's all right. Boom. And a boom. So then these get projected upwards. As you can see, if I rotate the phone downwards, they're kind of floating a little bit beneath the phone, sort of, kind of. Either way, that they're on the level with the back face of the phone. So I'm going to hit OK, because that's good. That's what we want. Then I'm going to reorient it so I'm staring at the bottom of the phone. Now I've got my 4 purple lines, and I'm going to sketch a 2-point rectangle. You can do a different kind of rectangle if you want, but a 2-point rectangle is going to be really simple because all we're looking to do here is just draw a rectangle that's bigger than those lines. It doesn't really, at this point, matter a whole lot how much bigger than the lines. We just want it to be bigger than the lines because we're going to sketch the dimension in a second here to make sure that they're a very specific size. So we've got our 4 lines and we've got our rectangle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Sketch Dimension. You can also press D on your keyboard in order to bring it up. And then the cursor turns into these 2 vertical lines with the arrows between them. And I'm going to start sketching the distance between these purple lines and their corresponding rectangle edge. So I'm going to select this one and this rectangle edge, and I'm going to bring it downwards. And as you can see, it's 6.515 millimeters. I'm going to change it to 3 millimeters. Cool. I'm going to do the same thing. Oh, no worries. We're just doing some review right now. So hopefully you should already like be at this point or a little bit beyond. We spent the beginning 10 minutes just sort of talking about robots anyway, so no big deal. Um, so yeah, we're going to do the same thing around all of the edges here. We're going to click on one of these lines and then click on the corresponding edge, bring it outwards, and set it to 3 mm. Same deal, 1 and 1, upwards, 3 mm. Same deal, 1 and 1, outwards, 3 mm. So now, this rectangle is exactly 3 mm longer on each, well, 6 mm longer on each side than the phone dimensions, which it'll give our case about a thickness of 3 mm, which is perfect. That's what we're looking for. All right, so with that done, we have created our initial rectangle. I'm going to hit Stop Sketch. And so now I'm looking at this rectangle sort of floating out in the middle of nowhere with some purple lines on it. I'm going to bring my phone back so that it's visible. Anytime you want to hide a component or make it visible, you can just click the light bulb. If the light bulb is lit, it's visible. If it's not, it's invisible. Pretty surprising and exciting stuff, I know. Anyway, so now our phone is visible and we got this nice little rectangle floating over it. Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I'll let you in on the secret. On the presentation, it's 2 centimeters. My middle schoolers informed me that it actually got changed to 3 centimeters. So the fact that you guys have 2.5 centimeters, it really don't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So if you got 2.5 centimeters, that's cool. All right, so we've got our rectangle, and now we're going to extrude our rectangle. Doesn't really work as well with the word extrude. Anyway, we're going to extrude the rectangle to put it into regular people speak. So I'm going to go ahead and either it might be a quick select up here in the top, or you can click on the create drop down and select extrude here, or you can hit the E key on your keyboard. Just an embarrassment of options. So I'm going to go ahead and select extrude, and I'm going to click on that rectangle we drew. As you can see, we got one selected, and it's going to be the start point is going to be the profile plane. Now the direction, however, the direction we are going to change. The direction we're going to change to 2 sides because we want to extrude in 2 different directions, but we don't necessarily want to extrude them the same amount in each direction, so it's not going to be symmetric. So make sure you select 2 sides. Now 2 sides is going to give you two sides to extrude on. The first side, side 1, is going to be how far we want to extrude it upwards, and then side 2 is going to be how far we want to extrude it downwards. So this is 1, this is 2. Let's go ahead and set that up. So for side 1, we want to extrude it 2 millimeters, and it's going to pop up just 2 millimeters off the back of the phone. For side 2, we're going to extrude it 9 millimeters, and it's going to go down 9 millimeters. That was supposed to be like an entirely different noise than what came out of my mouth. But anyway, 9 millimeters. And so now the phone is completely obscured. Now we've got that floating blue rectangle in there. That's because that's the original plane with which we started to do this drawing, or excuse me, extrusion. As soon as we hit OK, though, that's going to disappear, and we're just going to have a nice, solid-looking brick. And your phone case is done. You wrap your phone up in it, and you can throw your phone at anything, and it'll never break because it's inside a solid piece of metal. No, it's not actually the phone case, but it's a good start so far because it's got the very, very rough shape of it. And in fact, we're going to start working with this a little bit more in order to provide a closer to phone shape. So we've got our brick, and now we need to make our brick nice and soft around the edges. So I'm going to go up to modify, and I'm going to select the fillet or fillet. Not really sure which one it's supposed to be, but I'm going to go ahead and select it, and then we get the little setup window here, and then I'm just going to select all of these edges. And by all of these edges, I mean all of the sort of vertical edges of our brick. And make sure you've only selected those little vertical edges. So if we rotate around the phone case, you can see that it's just each of the 4 vertical edges, which is great. That's all we want. We want a constant radius. We want the rolling ball corner type. Tangent chain is great. Curvature G2 is terrible. Don't have it. I mean, it's not really terrible, but just, leave it unselected. And we're going to set the radius to be 10 millimeters. And as you can see, the corners get drawn in and rounded. And it looks super duper nice. So I'm going to hit OK. And here we go. Now we've got some nice rounded corners on our phone case. Cool. Now what do we do? Well, now we're going to start working on the front of the case and cutting inwards so that we can reveal the screen. Because a smartphone is not much if you can't see the screen. So we should probably do that. So I suppose this raises an interesting little dilemma. Which part is the front of the phone? Well, if you'll remember, we said it was like the phone was laying on a table. So, and it was laying on a table face up. So the bottom was the back of the phone. Since we wanted the front of the phone, we're going to select the top now, and we're going to rotate it around so that it's oriented properly. And here we are. This is the front of the phone. We can hide the case in order to confirm that. There's the front of the phone. beautiful. Perfect. So guess what we're going to do here? Time's up. We're going to create a new sketch. So this is, I believe, we're starting to tread into unfamiliar territory for you guys. So I'm gonna slow it down a wee bit at this point since it's not mostly review. So we're going to create a new sketch. You guys know how to do that. Just go ahead and click Create Sketch, and then make sure you select the front face of the case. Rhyming. Make sure you select that. So now it's nice and blue, and then it turns into like a beige color. Anyway, we're gonna have that case, and then we're going to hide it. And you might be going, that's weird. Why would you do that? Well, I'll tell you why we're going to do that. Because we're going to project the face of the phone. So I'm going to go to Sketch, Project/Include, and then Project. And I'm going to select the edge. All the way around. And it's going to yell at me. If I show my case again, I can see that the lines are there. So it's okay that it's yelling at me right now. All it's saying is, hey, the thing that you're projecting onto is invisible right now, so, what are you doing? But that's okay. We can just sort of make it visible again to check it periodically. And if we zoom all the way out, we can see, hey, this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. We want just the outline of the case to be projected onto, or excuse me, the outline of the screen to be projected onto the front of the case. So I'm going to hit OK now that I'm satisfied with that. And if I hide it real quick, as you can see, it lines up perfectly with just the outline of the case, including the little microphone, or excuse me, speaker bit here, which is excellent. We want that as well. So now we've got our phone case projected on, or excuse me, phone screen projected onto the front of the case. I need to stop mixing my terminology. All right, so now that's done, we're going to sketch a couple of lines downwards. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to extend these two vertical lines here to the edge of the case. And you'll see why we want to do that in a moment, but I'm going to show you exactly what I mean first. So I'm going to take this nice point that was created here, and I'm going to click, and I'm just going to create a line downwards. As you can see, I get two sort of measurements here. One I've got on the left here, I've got degrees, and on the right here, I've got length in millimeters. I can't really point at them with my cursor because they just move with my cursor. I'm going to try and, sort of get that in the vicinity of 90 degrees. But I want to make sure that it's touching the bottom. Same one here, in the rough vicinity of 90 degrees. It doesn't have to be perfect right now because we're going to fix it with a sketch dimension real quick. So what I want to do is I want to select the whole line with a sketch dimension, and then I want to select this horizontal line right here and drag it outwards. And then I get this nice little angle indicator here, and I just set it to 90.0. And it sort of very, very subtly realigns itself, which is exactly what we want. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other side over here. Select it, move it outwards, and make it 90 degrees. So now we've got these two perfectly vertical lines which extend the perfectly vertical edges of the screen. You might be going, well, that's weird. Why did you do that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there's a very important thing to be had here. I'm going to stop this sketch, and I'm going to select all of these lines along the bottom, including the points. And I'm going to, well, no, I'm not going to stop the sketch. Okay, so while I'm still sketching, you can right click and hit edit sketch again in order to come back into this menu. I'm going to select all these lines and points along the bottom here, and I'm going to go ahead and click the construction button so that they get turned into construction lines. And presumably it's going to cooperate with me. Maybe I have to do it individually. Cool. Looks like I had a couple of overlapping lines, so I'm just gonna get rid of the overlapping lines and turn them into construction lines. All right, now I'm gonna stop the sketch. So now we've got these dotted lines down here, but notice when I mouse over this area, the whole thing is selectable, and when I mouse over the outside area, the whole area is selectable. This is exactly what we want right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut away this middle bit here and sort of bring it back inwards. I'm going to hide the phone real quick because it's going to be some real Houdini stuff. Click Extrude, select the middle bit here, and actually, before I go any further, I do want to turn this top part into construction lines as well, because we don't want to have the microphone bit, or excuse me, the speaker bit up here to be just sort of floating in midair. That's not ideal at all. All right, cool. So now the whole thing is selectable. Now we're going to go back to the extrude. We're going to select this face right here, and we're going to extrude it a distance of -8 millimeters. And you can see the operation changes to cut here. And if I rotate it, there's this whole red area right here. This red area is going to be all the stuff that's removed. If I rotate it, you can see inwards, there's like a whole bunch of red in there. It looks kind of purplish on the top because it's still got the blue selected area with the red underneath. So it's got a nice purpley thing going on, and you got some of the red sort of visible through here. Anyway, point being, this whole area is going to get cut away. That looks good. So -8 millimeters, and this whole center area, we'll hit OK. And look at that, it all disappears. And if I bring the phone back, oh my gosh, I am easily impressed. There's the phone screen. So this is starting to look more like a case now, right? At least I think it looks more like a case now. All right, so that's pretty neato, right? As it stands right now, we've got the beginnings of a case. We've got it's about 1 millimeter thick on the bottom, and it's going to be about 1 millimeter thick around all the edges as well, I believe. 1 to 2 millimeters thick. I suppose we'll see. But it's gonna wrap around the phone like this, so you'll be able to encase the phone. How did you do the thing with the construction lines? Excellent question. I'm gonna undo to that point so I can show you guys. Whoop, 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 whoop. That was my undo noise. Okay. So notice we've got solid purple lines here because they're projected. If I click on one of them while we're in sketch mode, there's this little option here labeled construction. And I'll click on that. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of overlap going on here. So it's not always going to be super easy to see until I get rid of the line. And you might run into the same thing too. You might select construction and it says that it's selected, but you don't actually see the dotted line here. In which case, what you can do is you can probably select that solid line and hit the delete key because you've got 2 overlapping lines. Once that's done, you can then select the line that's remaining and hit construction, and you should see it turn into a dotted line. Do the same thing here. I'm going to turn it into a construction line, and same thing. Like, it kind of looks like there's a dotted line, but there's also this solid purple line. So if I click here and hit the delete key, what I'm actually doing is I'm deleting the construction line that I created, and I'm unhiding the projection line underneath, which is fine. That's perfect. So I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to turn that one into construction line, and then there you go. Now it's got the dotted line. If one of these points has like a sort of a dot in the middle, like these do, that means that they're construction dots, which sounds a whole lot more fun than it actually is. I don't know why. Construction dots reminds me of like a cereal or something. I have no idea. Anyway, whoops, I don't want to delete that. There we go. Oh, I see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sketch dimension again. That might be part of it too. There might have been a line created with the sketch dimension that overlaps it, or you may have used the sketch dimension to compare the overlapping line. In which case, if your sketch dimension disappears, that's okay. You can just redo it. But this is how you create construction lines, by just selecting the line and hitting the construction button. And just make sure you do it to the bottom of the screen here, the screen outline rather, and make sure you do it to the top here as well, where the earpiece is. Once those are all turned into construction lines, you're good to go. Have you guys received an explanation as to what construction lines are and why they're useful? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, well, by construction lines are. Have you ever? How many of you have worked with like wood before? Just in some fashion or another. Doesn't have to be like, building a house or anything like that, but like you've had to maybe cut a piece of wood or nail a piece of wood to another piece of wood or something like that. Okay, not many people. Um, well, well, you guys have all done coding before. Show of hands, how many of you have coded before? All right, some more people. So in any of these cases, sometimes you need to make little notes for yourself. Like in the case of working with wood, you might use a pencil and draw a couple of lines on that wood to tell you later on where you're supposed to cut. Yeah, and then in coding, you've got comments, which are, yeah, notes to yourself, exactly, so that you know exactly why you wrote something. Of course, that's making an assumption about the quality of comments, which is a thing that's sort of a problem for everybody when they first start coding. But regardless, uh, 8 millimeters, 8 millimeters. Um, Regardless, the whole point is they're helpful notes for yourself, much like how, these sort of measurements and stuff like that, these aren't going to be seen by the final product. There aren't going to be measurements all over your 3D printed thing or whatever, based on whatever you made in Fusion 360. You're not going to have construction lines everywhere, and it's not going to consider it a part of the design for exporting purposes. If you want to send it to a laser cutter or a 3D printer or whatever, it's not going to come with those construction lines. However, it is going to acknowledge that they exist so that you can do stuff like make measurements with them and keep track of where things are supposed to be. You can create construction lines and then sketch dimensions off of them and stuff like that, so that you can find an endpoint, or excuse me, a midpoint, and make things perfectly symmetrical, and just stuff like that. Uh, the the crucial component of that is that they're not interactable by everything else. If these weren't construction lines and we tried to select this whole area like it is right now, this bottom part would be cut off because this would be considered a solid line. And so this middle area of the screen would be considered distinct from this middle bottom area underneath the screen, which is exactly why the middle area is selectable and the outside area is selectable, is because these lines are solid. If we turn these into construction lines, we'd be able to select the whole front of the case. But that is not the case. So anyway, extrude, we're going to cut -8 millimeters. Hit OK. Now we've got our case cut away. And if we show our phone, why is our phone so dang hidden? Oh, I accidentally deleted. Ah! I accidentally deleted the lines on the front of the phone. That's why you want to, yeah, that's why you want to hide the phone whenever you're not working with it. Angry chewy noise. All right, let's turn these all back to normal. We'll hide the phone. We'll turn these into construction lines. Construcciones. All right, now the whole middle of the phone is selectable again. And we'll go ahead and extrude. Sometimes it's just very easy to make mistakes. Why is that not visible? All right, well, I apparently ruined my phone beyond all repair. Don't be me. It's not really ruined beyond all repair. I'm sure I could undo far enough back that I would have the front of the phone again, but it's more important to maybe move a little bit forward. Boom, there are construction lines, boom. Stop the sketch, boom. We extruded inwards, boom. Revealed the phone. Next, we will combine the two pieces so that the hole is made for the phone to fit. So a hole is made for the phone to fit. So what we do is we show the phone again, we select the phone and the components, and we go to modify and combine. So the target body in this case is going to be our component, and our tool body is going to be our phone. And whenever you're working with combine, you're going to affect the target body with the tool body. The tool body is going to do the thing to the target body. So in this case, the operation we want is cut. So what it's going to do is it's going to cut a perfectly phone-shaped hole out of our case. And we want to keep the tools because we don't want our phone to disappear. Then we're going to hit OK. Now, if I select the component to be the primary component, the case to be the primary component, and I had the phone, look at that. What it's done is it's taken the exact dimensions of the phone and cut them out of the inside of the case, which is pretty dang cool, right? So now we've got a little power button slot over here. We got some volume button slots, a vibration lock or silent slot. We've got the beginnings of a hole for the camera and a light sensor. So we're getting there, you know? Next would probably be cutting these out so that they go all the way through the case. So we'd be able to do things like, you know, I don't know, press the power button so it's not covered by a case. But that will come in the next lesson, since it's 8:49, and I want to make sure that we get the poll questions in and stuff like that. So why don't we go ahead and get started on that, and then we'll leave it open for question and answer time. If you guys have any questions about anything, I'm here after we do the poll questions. And then if we do the poll questions and you don't have any questions yourself, then you're more than welcome to head out. Have a wonderful weekend, and you will see Mr. Dubik on Monday, and you will see me again on Wednesday. Good Lord. Mouth. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the poll question started.